In the last episode, Jeff Tunn, the CIO of Goodwill Industries of Central Indiana, shared with us his personal career journey and why lifelong learning has been one of the keys to his success. Today, Jeff will share how his own lessons on learning have helped him grow and develop his team as an executive, and why learning itself may be one of the most critical skills of the future. I'm Charles Araujo, and this is the TransformIT Show, presented by the Intel IT Center. So let's talk about this from a leadership perspective. So for the CIOs or the budding CIOs who are watching this, how does this affect them? I mean, at that executive level, how does this change things?
I think we all have to understand that our world is changing. Our world of IT, our world of business. And a great example, I was at a conference recently, and we're standing around afterwards, and one of the people that was there said, I don't know, I didn't get much out of this conference today because I don't know what I'm going to do different tomorrow than I was doing before I came. And I looked at her and I said, this conference was not about tomorrow. This conference was about 3 years from now. That's where you need to be focused. How does what you hear today impact your business 3 years from now? And I think to me, that's the biggest change for the CIO role. We've always thought that we were forward thinkers, but it's really about 3, 4, 5 years from now, what's going to be impacting your business, and what are some potential disruptions to your business? How can your expertise provide the shield from those disruptions or leverage those disruptions for the better of your company? I think that's the mindset shift that we have to go through.
Is there anything specific when you think of this from your executive perspective, right? From that was a key to kind of connecting this idea of how do you do that in this context of being this lifelong learner?
Well, I think two things. I think as leaders you have to be very transparent with yourself and understanding where you're going, where your business is going. But you also have to be transparent with your teams, right? You can't sit in your office and think about the future and think about how technology applies to the future. You have to be with your teams and explain that in a very transparent fashion that this is how it's going to impact you. And I think as we talked earlier, it was if you see yourself as a racker and stacker of hardware, that's awesome. You're just not going to do it here, because we don't have it anymore. So if you want to do that, let me connect you with one of the data centers here in town, and you can further your career there. That's outstanding. But it's that transparent conversation with the individual that says, your skill set is still very valuable, but not in our organization because we're moving in that direction. And I think that ties back to some of the conversation that we had earlier about helping people see themselves in the future. If they can't make that leap, if they can't make that jump, if they really just love hardware, that's okay. We just need to help them move somewhere else to get that done.
I love that. I think it really speaks to this idea that, because I'm probably as guilty as anybody talking about lifelong learning kind of esoterically, but you put it in this very pragmatic kind of model that says, yes, we need to learn, but it's about being deliberate. It's about knowing where things are going, where you want to go, and how to get there. And I think that's a really powerful concept to get people to understand.
Yeah. IT people love to learn. I mean, that's probably what attracts us to this industry. But I think you're right, it has to be focused. I talk to our team all the time about if you're spending time at home learning about a new technology, that's fantastic. Learn about this one, because this is the one that I think we're going to be able to leverage. Not stop learning, but focus it, right, on something that's going to really pay dividends for the organization.
So I'd like to end this by making this kind of action-oriented, right? I think you've got this great story, this kind of great personal career and life journey where you've embraced lifelong learning, and I'm quite sure that you've inspired a whole bunch of other people to go, yeah, you know what, I have that too, and I've forgotten about it. I put it in the shelf or put it in the drawer and let it sit to the side, and I need to go do something tomorrow. what should they be doing tomorrow to start embracing this?
I think one of the keys, again, that we've talked about is look at yourself. What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are your strengths and weaknesses of your team? Identify the areas that you want to work on. And I think the concept also comes in that we all learn differently. I told my story. I learned from reading textbooks. If you put me in a classroom in front of a lecture, oh my God, just shoot me now, right? Some people, that's how they learn. Other people, a great example of that was when we were rolling out Google, and we kind of forgot at the front end of that people learn differently. Millennials, Gen Zs, what they want to do is they want to go watch a 30-second YouTube video, and then they're off and they know how to do it. Some of the other folks, the baby boomers like you and I, we want someone to teach us how to do that. So we had to learn from that. We learned from our mistake and set up classes for people to come in and learn how to do Google. And I always start them with, here's how you can learn about Google. You can Google, and there's lots of stuff on the internet to learn about, right? So I even try to pull them along that way, saying, hey, this is a different way to learn. So I think to bring it back to the actions, once you have identified your strengths and weaknesses, your team's strengths and weaknesses, map that against your vision of where you think the team is going, and meet with them individually, help them develop a creative development plan that puts them on the track in the direction that they want to go. Might be within your organization, might not be. But I think we owe it as leaders to help them set up their own plans after we've defined our personal plans as well.
And what about just on a personal level? So I mean, I hear you say that you need to take that inventory and you kind of need to understand, and then if it was you and you're watching this, what's the one thing that you would do tomorrow that maybe is just different?
I think what I would do differently tomorrow is purposely set aside time, right? Because time, your calendar is your master. I would set aside time to really reflect and understand those strengths and weaknesses. But if you don't set the time aside, you're never going to do it. So I'd break out part of your day, part of your week to focus on learning what's next.
I think that's perfect. I think that's some great insights and advice that everyone is going to take something from and I think learn from. So I think it's a perfect wrap up for this. So Jeff, thank you for being on the TransformIT show.
My pleasure. It's been great to be with you, Charlie.
I really enjoyed talking with Jeff, perhaps because his career journey is so approachable. In it, I think that all of us can see parts of ourselves and how, by simply embracing this idea of lifelong learning, we can take a career and life anywhere we choose. And perhaps that was the big message from Jeff's story, that learning is a deliberate choice. It must be focused. It's not about chasing the next shiny object. It's about knowing where you want to go and what you'll need to learn to get there. He shared with us that you need to begin by understanding where you want to go in your career, and then take an honest inventory of any weaknesses that may hold you back. He challenged us to be transparent with both ourselves and with our teams about where the future is going and our options on how we choose to respond to that future. And finally, he reminded us that we don't all learn in the same fashion, so we must tune our own learning approach to our own personal style and then ensure that we are helping our teams learn in ways that make sense to them. Add it all up, and I think you've got the recipe to develop yourself as a lifelong learner. Let us know about your own learning journey by using the Twitter hashtag TransformIT or by leaving a comment here on the episode page. Also, make sure that you check out the resources that both Intel and we at the IT Transformation Institute have made available for you. You can check them out at www.intel.com/IT-center and on our website at www.transformingit.org. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the TransformIT Show. I'm Charles Araujo, and together we can change the world of IT.